Welcome to our very first class on Christian basics, or for my Lutheran teenagers, confirmation. Every week we aim to provide you with biblical content and application that will help you with your new or emerging walk with Christ. And today we're going to be looking at maybe the most important question of all, whether God exists. So, let's roll. Does God exist? What a huge question, right? Can we possibly cover that in 15 minutes? Well, maybe more to the point, why cover it at all? I mean, doesn't everybody know that God exists? In fact, one of the things that I've seen in a lot of confirmation curricula is that they don't ever really look at this question at all. Since it's a bunch of 14-year-olds who already go to church, they already know that God exists. You just need to teach them the specifics of Lutheranism or something like that. But the fact is, if you're in high school or if you're in college right now, or if you're an adult, you know that you're surrounded by basically a world full of unbelief, atheism, which is just a fancy word that means no God. It really is the default setting of our world today. I mean, it's really a pretty small number of people in the world of sports or entertainment or even politics who are really open, confessing Christians. It really is the default worldview or point of view of pretty much every television show or movie you're going to watch. I mean, how often do people consult the Bible or really pray or mention God in the event of a crisis? Much less will speak about their Lord Jesus Christ, right? I mean, that hardly ever happens. And usually when it does, they're making fun of Christians. So there's a very good chance that at some point in the near future, you are going to be surrounded by people who think you are a fool for even believing that God exists. And there's a ton of stuff on YouTube, debates, huge books that you could read about this topic, obviously. I mean, people have been talking about it forever, so in 15 minutes, I'm not going to give you like the silver bullet or anything like that. But I want you to start to think about it because it will be what surrounds you very soon. So, what are some of the best arguments for the existence of God? Well, I actually think the best answer to that is to go on the offensive and say that the best argument for the existence of God is that it's impossible for God not to exist. If God doesn't exist, nothing could exist. If God doesn't exist, then timeless values like universal right and wrong and good and bad themselves would be impossible. Ask yourself this. Have you ever done something that was wrong and you knew it was wrong and, you felt bad about it? Well, yeah, we all have. But why did you think that it was wrong? And why do all people have that experience? Well, because God exists and we are made in his image. And as Paul writes in Romans 1, we suppress the truth in unrighteousness. So we believe that because we're made in God's image, we know the difference between right and wrong. We at least believe that there are some things that are right and wrong. Now, that doesn't mean that we're always going to agree on what's right or wrong, right? Nazis thought it was okay to kill millions of people. But the very idea of thinking that anything is right or wrong is indicative that some things really are right and wrong. How you know what is right or wrong is a different question. That might involve your conscience or your source of authority, things like that. But I would definitely argue that generally speaking, there is near universal agreement on certain moral precepts, and that stems from our common creator. But that's sort of looking within to get a general sense that God exists, that we have something all in common as human beings. What if we look without? What if we look at the universe? Is there any evidence that God exists? People are always kind of looking for that one thing that definitely proves beyond the shadow of a doubt that God exists. Well, sure, there's a ton of evidence that God exists. You see, right now we exist in space and time and matter and energy. But that space and time and matter and energy that we're in right now, you see, it could not have existed forever into the past. It could not have existed eternally into the past. That is physically and philosophically impossible, right? It began to exist at a point in time. For example, if time itself extended all the way into the past, eternally into the past, then we would never get to the present day, right? Because time would just keep going backward. It'd be like as you're on an escalator and you're it's going down and you're going up, but you can never quite get to the top, right? Well, what about matter? Well, the universe, let's say, was created about 14 billion years ago. The universe cannot always have existed. And we know that because we know now that the universe is expanding. And if the universe always existed, then it would have been expanding like forever, eternally. And it would just keep expanding and get bigger and bigger until nothing in the universe could live, like us, like we're alive right now, right? Nothing could live because the universe would have expanded into a heat death, right? And so the universe can't be infinitely old. Well, people have come up with different theories to sort of work around these problems. For example, you could say that the universe has been expanding and contracting and expanding and contracting, but there's certainly no evidence that that's the case, and we want to be, honoring the science, right? Believing the science. Or you could say that there is a multiverse, that there are lots of universes out there. But again, there's no evidence for that either. So those seem like wishful thinking ways to get around the fact that there's one universe, that it began at a point in time, and that we live in it in a spectrum of time. So we really know with 100% certainty that the universe began at a certain point in time. So the question really is, who or what could have created it? Well, I'd say it's definitely a who, because to go from nothing to something is a choice. It's a decision. Someone decided to make that change from nothing into something. And we know that whoever this was, they were beyond space and time and matter and energy, right? Because those things don't create of themselves. So this is the creator of space and time and matter and energy. And so therefore this being was spaceless, immaterial, and very powerful. Oh, and there's this incredible design of the universe. So we're clearly talking about a being that is very powerful and very intelligent. Well, anyway, you get where this is going, right? I mean, it's kind of impossible for God not to exist, God being a powerful, intelligent being. But this says nothing about the Bible. And actually, that's where I'm going to want to go. Let's just keep it simple for now. Either God exists and everything in your life is full of meaning and purpose because there is a God who knows you, who created all things, or God doesn't exist and your life really is without meaning or purpose. We're just stardust. We're just floating through the universe. And the next video is going to talk about that a little bit more. I mean, if God doesn't exist, though, are we accountable to anybody or anything? Or are we really just glorified animals, not made in God's image, but just some kind of being that shares 60% of our DNA with, bananas and fruit flies? But God does exist. He has to exist. If God doesn't exist, then nothing else can exist. So then the next question is, who's to say that the God of the Bible is the true God? After all, there are lots of other gods out there. Well, I actually like to use Jesus for this. Jesus, we are 100% sure that he actually created and lived on the earth and said some very interesting things that are accurately and reliably documented in what we call the Bible. More videos about that in the future. But just think about the story of the Bible, right? It is the revelation of the Hebrew people who had this long and storied relationship to this God who actually revealed himself to them, beginning with Adam and Eve and Noah, and then Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, and through Joseph and Moses. This God revealed himself as the singular God of the universe who intervenes in history and makes himself known to this people, eventually leading to his own son, Jesus Christ, and the nation of Israel. In the Bible, we see God demonstrating his power through the defeat of false gods, like with Elijah and the prophets of Baal, and even through his defeat of Israel when it fell into idolatry and was unfaithful to him. Jesus claimed to be God. He claimed to be the Son of God, and that he and the Father are one. Jesus forgave sins, something that only the Father could do. And then what of Jesus' miracles? Maybe these are some of the greatest ways we can see that God really exists, he really has made himself known, and that in Christ we can trust that the God of the Old Testament, if you will, is the one God of the entire universe. Well, let's just look at these miracles briefly. We'll look at them more, of course, in future videos. Well, in the New Testament, there are 38 miracles that are spoken of in some detail, not counting miracles that are sort of unnamed or happen to unnamed people. And these are diverse types of miracles. They're not all the same kind of miracles. I mean, there's raising the dead and healing people who are blind and healing people who are deaf and people who are bent over and casting out demons. There's just all kinds of miracles throughout the New Testament. Some of them occur in private and some of them occur in public. They're among all the social classes, right? So any number of kind of people, powerful people, wealthy people, poor people, they all experience these miracles. And as a testament to their truthfulness, they brought repercussions, right? I mean, Jesus himself was accused of being in league with the devil, and he was almost thrown off a cliff for exorcising a man of demons and sending them into a herd of swine. And his miracles really weren't even doubted. It's not that people doubted that they happened. They were confirmed by his friends and his enemies alike. Remember, they said he was able to do them because he had the power of the devil. So I think that you can actually look at Jesus to answer this question of whether God exists. Sometimes we start talking about philosophy. We kind of just look at the big picture, but really history is a good place to start too. If Jesus is who he said he was and he did the things empowered by God like he said he did, then it's 100% certain that God existed. So I think Jesus is actually a really good place to start. And just remember that if and when you go off to college and your fancy college professor, he really doesn't believe that God exists and he really thinks you're an idiot if you do, just know for now that there are really good reasons to believe that God exists. In fact, I would argue it's certain that God exists. In fact, I would argue that the only thing more certain than anything else in the universe is that if God doesn't exist, then nothing could exist. I hope this has been a helpful start to the conversation. I'm not an expert on this question by any means. There's a lot of other things out there, but again, a lot of confirmation curricula, they don't really cover this. They just sort of assume that your average teenager or young adult or something, already believes that God exists. But in fact, it's a question that you can look into. There are great debates on YouTube. I definitely encourage you to find those. I'll probably put some links in the comments of this video for that. Well, thanks for joining me. Next week, we're going to look at what difference it makes that God exists. So, really look forward to that. For now, don't forget to subscribe, email me at christianbasicsclass@gmail.com. Check out the website for the worksheets and all that kind of stuff, flhouston.org, and we'll see you next time.